We're diving into what's more likely week 2, week 6 of the NFL season. Pittsburgh Steelers, Las Vegas Raiders happening Sunday at 4:25 p.m. on your television. Nick, what do we got?
Yeah, let's start with what's more likely. George Pickens, big topic of conversation today, obviously, is traded this season, or Najee Harris surpasses his career high of 1,200 rush yards. He's currently on pace for 917.
Oh, wow, that's a good one. This is a great one to start with. I will say, this is, you guys you tossed me a bullet, you tossed me a good one right off the bat. What's more likely? George Pickens gets traded this season, which is an important part of this. This season, or Najee Harris rushes for 1,200 plus yards. What's more likely? You got to imagine it's George Pickens, right? You got to imagine what's more likely where we currently stand, okay? Najee Harris starts to surpass what is happening to him, because I don't think it's all Najee, but I certainly don't think that Najee's helping himself. But I think it's a lot of everything else going on. A lot of defense playing him really well. A lot of the offensive line stinks. A lot of the offense is really not built to the skill set of Najee Harris. You're talking the trifecta here that Najee Harris has to overcome to get back on track, make everybody's fantasy pick worth it. And if you can't tell, Najee's on my fantasy team. That's why I mention this all the time. And man, dude, I'm trying so hard to keep him in that lineup. Yeah. And on top of that, has to jump 300 plus yards from his current expectation. I don't know. And then on the other side of that, George Pickens just has to continue to do what George Pickens is doing and run himself out of town, basically. I mean, from history, if history is going to tell us anything, it's that George Pickens is probably going to run us out of town. Now, that being said, Najee is consistent. He always picks up at the end of the season. He always starts going off at the end of the season. So I'm not going to say that that's not a possibility, but if you ask me what's more likely, which is the question, what's more likely where we currently stand in week 6 heading to Vegas, is that the Pittsburgh Steelers move on from their star wide receiver before the end of the season. And that only gives us 3 weeks.
Yeah, that only gives you 3 weeks. Let's go over to the next one. What's more likely? Pat Freiermuth, and this was made before we learned about his injury, has a 2-touchdown game, or the Steelers score a defensive touchdown.
2-touchdown game, or the Steelers score a defensive. As crazy as this one sounds, it's crazy. Like, I get it. The odds on this would be higher for Pat Freiermuth to score 2 touchdowns. But the Raiders are a mess offensively. They are a mess. They're without their star wide receiver. Their offensive line is complete garbage right now. They have no running game. And they're tossing Aiden O'Connell in there. But Aiden O'Connell's already had his change of quarterback bump. He's already had that game last season. You don't get it twice. You get one bump. And that's what it is. This one could be bad real fast. The Pittsburgh Steelers are fired up, pissed off, coming off back-to-back really bad games, especially defensively. I could see this as a Minka shows up. I could see this as a Dante Jackson gets one, takes it to the house. Deshaun Elliott is due for something crazy. Patrick Queen might come up with something. I could see that happening. Pat Freiermuth getting 2 touchdowns seems like the logical answer here. But I think where we stand, what's currently happening with the Pittsburgh Steelers and how angry they are, and also how poorly the offense is played, I'm going defensive touchdown on this. I'm feeling good about Aiden O'Connell coughing up that ball near the end zone.
Let's jump over to
let me ask this. Does a safety count in this? I want technicalities.
I have score a defensive touchdown.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm still sticking with it, but I just wanted to know.
Okay, there you go. Let's go over to who's more likely to have a 3-sack performance, Max Crosby or TJ Watt?
It's unfortunately Max Crosby. It is unfortunately Max Crosby. Look at TJ Watt is. If you are the Las Vegas Raiders, you can put all 5 guys up against TJ Watt this week and say, okay, somebody block Cam Hayward, somebody block Keanu Benton, and somebody block Larry Ogunjobi. The rest of the offense, everybody except for maybe one wide receiver, who cares, doesn't matter, go block TJ. That's what you're going to do. Tight ends are only going to be lined up over TJ. Running backs are only going to be lined up on TJ's side. I couldn't even tell you who's going to start on the other side. It's going to be Jeremiah Moon and a bunch of people I don't even know. So it's not looking good over there. Maybe they're putting Isaiah Loudermilk out there. Isaiah Loudermilk is not flexible enough to run off the side of the edge and say, I'm going to get around a defensive or an offensive tackle. No, that's not good. I like Isaiah Loudermilk. He's not an outside linebacker. That is not his position. Max Crosby is facing a Broderick Jones that is struggling and struggling bad. I could see him having a game. And let's not, like, this is not comparing like, oh, TJ Watt is the greatest defensive player in the NFL and Max Crosby some schlump. Like, no, Max Crosby is top 5 defensive players in the NFL. TJ Watt might be number 1, but I mean, Max is going up against most likely easier competition. I'm going Max. Don't feel good about it. I'm going Max.
Let's go over to what's more likely. Russell Wilson or Najee Harris will sign an extension in Pittsburgh. So who is more likely to sign that extension, Russ or Najee?
This is an easy one. This is the easiest one you've thrown at me, to be honest with you. It's Russell Wilson, because all Russ has to do is claim that starting job, win a couple of football games, and boom. The Steelers look at him and say, well, let's run it back. Let's run it back with Russell. Let's look at the Steelers' history with Russell Wilson. Okay. They lied. This has come out the other day. The Steelers pretty much lied to Kenny Pickett, which we were told that. Remember when we were talking about this in the spring, talking about, oh, the Steelers view Russell Wilson as a backup to Kenny. And then it emerged that like Mike Tomlin made this big promise to Russell Wilson that he's the starting quarterback and he's going to be our guy no matter what the situation was. Like, the Steelers have already ran one quarterback out of town. They refuse to commit to their other, who is definitely better than the first one, all because they are very sold on Russell Wilson. All he's got to do is win a couple of games for Mike Tomlin to say, yep, let's do it again. Let's run it back. Let's win a Super Bowl. Me and you, Russ, pals, amigos. Let's do this. I would say once Russ starts, it becomes very likely he signs another deal in Pittsburgh. Najee Harris, I think, those chances are slipping away by the week. You know, you're not rushing for 40 yards in a game, and the Steelers thinking, yep, we didn't sign you. We didn't pick up your 5th-year option because we wanted to see how you looked in Arthur Smith's offense. You don't look good in it, but we'll try it one more time, whatever. You know, I think it's Russ. I think it's an easy answer in Russ, actually. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What's something that scares you? For me, it's the obvious ones: death, loss, failure. Halloween lets us have fun with what scares us, but what about those fears that don't involve zombies and ghosts? Therapy is a great tool for facing your fears while finding ways to overcome them, because sometimes the scariest thing is not facing our fears in the first place and holding ourselves back. I'm somebody who's benefited from therapy for a long time, and I've been an advocate for therapy for years, and I'm excited to tell you guys about BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/allsteelers today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/allsteelers.
All righty. What's more likely? The Steelers score 20+ points in every single game before the bye week, or Roman Wilson plays before the bye week?
That's a good one. So they got Vegas, then they got the Jets, and then they have the Giants. So yep. I would imagine 20+ points against Vegas. I would imagine 20+ points against the Giants, especially because they just lost Kayvon Thibodeau. The Jets are a tough one because the Jets look like a dumpster fire, but their defense looks good. You know, you fired Robert Saleh, who was a defensive coach, so maybe it gets worse, especially with your defensive coordinator now becoming a head coach, which means that he's got more on his plate, can focus less on the defense. Maybe it works out. The other one, Roman Wilson, though, I still don't think Roman's close. I don't think Roman's close to getting on that field. I just don't think the Steelers want him to be on that field right now. I don't know why. Mike Tomlin does not see football the way we see football. Maybe that's why he's the longest, winning head coach in the NFL right now. Maybe it's why he hasn't won a playoff game in 7 years. I have no idea. I'm going What's more likely? The Pittsburgh Steelers score 20 plus points in all three of these games. This week is 20 plus easy. There's no questions about it. This is the George Pickens had a lash out, and now he's going to come back and ball out. This is the defense is pissed off, so maybe they score a touchdown. This is that game. And the other team just changed quarterbacks. You're not getting a bump. You already got the bump. This is that game. The Giants are the easiest game. I mean, before the bye, the Steelers are going to be fired up. That's 20 points. The Jets could be a tough one, but I'm going to put my faith in that over Roman playing before the bye week.
All righty. We got a couple listener inclusions here for what's more likely. Sean says, what's more likely? Justin gets 3 touchdowns or Najee finally gets 1?
I got to say Najee gets 1. I'm thinking Najee scores this week. I looked at it. I looked at him this week. I looked at the Steelers bets and everything when I was going through the DraftKings Sportsbook app, and I was just thinking, like, Najee's got to get in there eventually. You're not going to go a full season as a running back without a touchdown. That doesn't happen. Week 6 is probably as long as you could push this out. I'm going Najee on this. I'm saying Najee 3 touchdowns. If you told me 2, we'd have a tight race. I think we'd have a tight race. But what's more likely, the 3 or the 1? I'm going Najee with the 1. I still think there's, if you told me 2, I might take the 2. I might feel confident with the 2, but I'm going Najee with the 1. I think he gets in there. I think he gets the first one, to be honest.
Alrighty, I guess that answers this next one from No Coast Golf. What's more likely, Warren or Harris to score the next touchdown?
I'm going Harris. I'm going Najee Harris. I think he's going to be first touchdown scorer this week. I'll put my bet on that one. I'm feeling good about it. I think it's also what's more likely, like Najee's definitely playing. Jalen is a giant question mark. Door is definitely cracked, but I don't think it's open yet. Some people have told look at the words "step through the door" have been mentioned to me. Not going to say by who, but have been mentioned to me. So I think Jalen has a chance to play, but I'm going Najee on this. I think Najee scores the next touchdown. Between those two, what's more likely? I'm going Najee. I think the Steelers want to get him involved and get him finally going after a couple of bad games.
Let's go over to William's question. What's more likely, seeing Russ in week 7 or seeing Adams in a Steeler uniform in week 7?
Oh, this is a good one, but it's Russ. And it's you could tell me what's more likely, seeing Russ play. You could have said a billion things. Russ playing more snaps than George Pickens. I think I would have taken Russ. Russ finally getting the starting. Russ or Justin Fields taking the field as a QB, I'd go Russ. Russ scoring more touchdowns than Najee, I'd go Russ. I think Russ is starting next week. I think where we sit here right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers want Russell Wilson to start in week 7. I think they're nuts for it. I think they're absolutely lunatics to do so. I think it's only Mike Tomlin. The way Arthur Smith speaks, especially today, the way Arthur Smith speaks about Justin Fields just makes you think that he wants Justin on the field, that he sees the potential in this kid and he sees what he can do with him. I just get that vibe from Arthur Smith. I think Mike Tomlin's the only one sitting around going, Russ, just patting him on. It's okay, buddy. You're going to get out there. And I like Russ. I think Russ is a good dude and a good player. But I think Arthur Smith wants Justin out there. I think the players want Justin out there. Not saying that they're picking between the two, but I think they see how far they've already come with Justin. That being said, Mike Tomlin makes all those final calls, and I think he's going Russ. I think he's going Russ in week 7.
We got 2 more what's more likelies from the listeners that we're going to go to. Let's start with Eddie the Great here. More likely, Boz hits from 60 plus or TJ pulls a hat trick against the Raiders.
I'm going Boz hits 60 plus. I think that one's indoors, Vegas. Yeah, I mean, why not gamble a little bit? Why not just take a little shot, roll the dice with Chris Boswell from 60 plus. I'd go Boz 60 plus on this. The hat trick would be nice. No doubt about it. The hat trick would be great to see. But again, you are lining up across from Jeremiah Moon and a bunch of dudes that nobody knows about. The offensive line is not, I'm telling you right now, 90's got a jersey on the Vegas practice squad. That other guy across from him who's wearing 48 and I think 17, they do not. And they're not going to all week long. The Raiders care less who it is. They're focusing on TJ Watt.
Alrighty, and let's close out what's more likely week 2 with vibing with the dogs. What's more likely? Minka Fitzpatrick gets an interception or the Steelers run a trick play and Boswell throws a pass.
Oh, man. Bad memories. Bad Bad memories. I'm going Minka interception on this one. I think at some point Minka's going to get a pick. I'm not concerned about Minka's interception woes. I'm just not. Like, other guys are coming up with turnovers. The defense is coming up with turnovers. Like, if that's not, if the Steelers defense had like 10 sacks a game and TJ Watt didn't have one of them, nobody be freaking out about TJ Watt. So I think I feel the same way about Minka. But that being said, what's more likely between these two? I hope the Steelers never run a trick play with Boz ever again in their lifetime, because the last one worked out terribly. And the last thing, I mean, to go into the bye week with a backup punter and a backup kicker is not where we want to be. Matthew Wright signed with the 49ers. We don't need it. Don't need the situation here. I'm going Minka just purely out of logic and at the same time a little bit of hope that the Steelers do not do that to Boz.